Hello book besties, welcome to my mid-year freak out. Let's just cozy up, grab a drink, and talk about our year of reading so far. Favorite books, least favorite books, books we just continue to leave on the TBR, anticipated releases coming in the second half, and so much more. This is such a fun video, and as I go through the questions, if you are a booktuber, consider yourself tagged, do this mid-year freak out, and if you're not a YouTuber, please just go ahead and answer as many of these questions as you'd like in the comment section below, and let's just geek out over all of the books that we have read or not read so far this year. Okay, so according to Fable, so far this year I have read 37 books, and currently it says that I am a resilient romantic. My stories cross historical, fantasy, and contemporary settings, but your stories find love in even the darkest moments. You have found kernels of hope on your literary journey, exploring the human complexities that make life so interesting. That is definitely my type of reading. Human complexities, but hope within them. If you've been here long enough, you know that I'm always saying I love a book that is just so human. And then according to my reading insights, I have read mostly romance. As you can see, I'll put up the little graph. No one is surprised by that. And so far my average rating is 3.9. So the first question is, of course, what is the best book that you have read so far this year? My answer for this is two books that I read in the same month, and one of those is Rebecca Yarros' The Things We Leave Unfinished. This book shocked me how much I liked it. I never wanted to pick it up because I really can't stand this cover, but I'm so glad that one of my blind TBRs, it was unwrapped, I read it, and I literally loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. It's two storylines, one that takes place in like wartime, and then currently a granddaughter is writing the story of her grandmother. You've got both storylines going, and there's letter writing and romance and a shocking twist at the end, as only Rebecca Yarros can write. One of my friends that convinced me actually to even try it had told me that if you like the romance plus the war and mystery, all of those elements of Fourth Wing, then you will love this book. And everyone that I have recommended it to since then has sobbed their eyes out and absolutely loved it as well. So easily one of my favorites of the year so far. But there is another book that is right up there with it, and this one also took me by so much surprise, Mile High by Liz Tomford. This isn't a book I recommend to everyone because there's a few open door scenes, and so if you avoid that completely, this isn't a book for you. But I was easily able to skip those scenes, and I loved this book. In fact, it's funny because I wanted to DNF it right away, but the character development that the male went through in this and the depth of these characters, like I was just saying, I love a good human story, and these characters felt so human. You went so deep into their lives. It was so much more than just a romance, which is why it worked for me. It had me in such a chokehold, and I could not turn pages fast enough. I absolutely adored it. So easily a top book of the year for me. Next question is the best sequel that you read so far this year, and this is probably the easiest question out of them all. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is Haymitch's story. It is technically like a prequel to what happened in the original trilogy of Hunger Games, but this is a book that all of us Hunger Games fans did not even know that we needed. So glad we got it. I just hope that she continues to write the stories of other characters. Who do we need to write to? Who do we need to beg and plead for a Finnick story? It was just such an amazing story, and so awesome to get Haymitch's background and why he became the person he became and who he is at his core, and getting his Reaping and his Hunger Games. Just gold, guys. And again, I just really hope that we get more stories like this. Question number 3, a new release that you have not read yet, that you want to read. I have read a lot of the new releases that I wanted to. Of course, I never have enough time to get to all of them, but the one that's probably the highest on my TBR at the moment is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I actually was not gonna read this one because Emily's been very hit or miss for me. I am not a super fan of Emily Henry. In fact, I tend to be a person who believes she's a little overhyped. I'm so sorry to say. Plus, some of the reviews have not been very good for this book. book. But at this point, I have seen enough reviews that make me wonder if I would love it. And then my sister-in-law, she read it and messaged me and was like, I sobbed, you have to read this book. And that was the final bit of confirmation that I needed. So it bumped it up from like, I don't really know if I care to read it at all, to when can I read this book. I am putting it on my July TBR, so I will finally be reading it really soon. And the next question is, what is your most anticipated new release for the second half of the year? I was just sitting here looking up, confirming my answer on this, and I'm so disappointed to say that my answer, or at least one of them, isn't even coming out till next year. It was going to be The Ballad of Falling Dragons, which is the sequel to When the Moon Hatched. It was definitely supposed to be coming out in the fall. Now it looks like it's not coming out until next February. So that is not my answer anymore. But one of my other answers is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. This book came out of nowhere. She was not giving us months of hints. In fact, she just released a book, and then out of nowhere she's like, hey, guess what? I have a new book coming in July as well. And Time of Your Life sounds like a completely 90s, early 2000s nostalgia inspired type of story, which is literally my language. I am so eager and excited for that story. The next question is, what was the biggest surprise of the year for you so far? And speaking of When the Moon Hatched, this was my biggest surprise of the year so far. I read it with my Patreon and there was a perfectly even split. People either totally hated it or completely loved it. I fell on the side of completely loving it. I do not even know what it is or what it was about this story. It was pretty gruesome, unbelievably confusing for like the first 50% of the book, which is why a lot of people did not like it, because it was very hard to grasp and to get into this world. But it worked for me. By the second half, I was so in love with this story and so gripped. I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for book 2, so this was definitely the biggest surprise of the year for me. And then the next question is, what is the biggest disappointment of the year for you? This was a really hard one for me. I do feel like I have read a lot of just average books this year, and that's what's really frustrating me about my reading this year. It's all just like mid books. There's been so few standouts, but there also hasn't been a bunch that are like, oh, I just hated that book. But one book that I guess it disappointed me only because I had hoped it would be a little bit better than it ended up being is Murder by Cheesecake. This is the Golden Girls inspired cozy mystery. I thoroughly enjoyed it for the vibes and because I love the Golden Girls, and this book literally felt like watching one of the episodes. It was spot on for like the characters and the vibes. But the mystery of it and just overall, like if I remove my love for the Golden Girls from this story, I probably wouldn't have liked the book at all. And so I guess it disappointed me. The next question is a favorite new author. This can be new to you or a debut author. I'm also kind of stretching this one. This is a really hard one for me to answer because a lot of the books that I loved this year are from authors that I've already been reading that are like tried and true for me. So finding one that is new to me was difficult. And a couple of the books that I did love, I only read one from the author, so I feel hesitant to be like, oh, this is a new favorite author. But I guess the one that I'm gonna go ahead and just go with is Liz Tomford from the Windy City series. Don't hold me to this answer, but if I have to give an answer that's a new author to me I loved, I guess Liz Tomford, but we'll see how the rest of this series goes for me. And the next question is your new fictional crush. I am not the type who gets really into fictional crushes, but I do find some of these fictional men very swoon-worthy, and probably the standout so far of the year is Shaw from The Golden Goal. I said it in my wrap up of this book that the book itself was like 4.5 stars, but Shaw was 5 stars, 10 stars. Such a great male character. The way that he pursued our female main character and the gestures that he did for her, I am so won over by a thoughtful male. He noticed that she always misplaced her hair ties, so she wouldn't have it to like put her hair up. So what did he do? He went and bought hair ties and would keep one on his wrist, so when she needed one, he would take it and like had one available for her. And they weren't even dating. Like, she didn't even know that he liked her yet. It's just those small little gestures that get me every time, and he was the king of them. Next question is a book that made me cry. Other than the two favorites, Things We Leave Unfinished and Mile High, those both made me cry. But trying to give a different answer instead of the same book over and over, another book that made me cry is Of Love and Treason. I can't really explain why without giving spoilers, but if you love to absolutely bawl your eyes out and weep, this is a great option for that. It will rip your heart out. That's really all I can say. And next is a book that made you happy. I did not grab my book, so I'm just gonna put a little picture up, but I just finished Everything Is Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh. And let me just say, every book Courtney Walsh ever writes, I know, hands down, it's going to make me so happy and so giddy. I don't know what it is, guys. She just puts something really special into her books. If you enjoy just a feel-good rom-com that has a little bit more human depth to them, but clean and wholesome and closed door and all of those things, you must try Courtney Walsh. I just felt so happy reading that book and following this theater girl as she's directing a show at a retirement facility with a bunch of old people. How could that not make you happy? And the next question is the most beautiful book that you've gotten so far this year. Hands down, the easiest question of them all, and quite possibly the most beautiful book that I will ever own, is Lightlark, this special edition that my friend got me for my birthday. There's not even enough words in the English language to describe how stunning this book is, from the foiling on the front to the sprayed edges, and then best yet are the multiple pages of artwork in the back. Such a prized possession of mine. And the next question is what book or books you want to finish by the end of the year. I cannot possibly answer this question. My TBR is literally overflowing. There's a lot of books on my TBR that I'm not like super eager to get to, but there's at least 30 plus books on there that are top priority. I am dying to get to, and this video is not designed for all of that. So I'm gonna just choose to not even name any. There's just too many to count. I guess just keep watching my videos over the course of the rest of the year and you will see what I end up reading. It also comes down to my blind TBRs and what actually gets opened. However, the next question is series that you want to finish by the end of the year, and that one's a little easier. I can go ahead and give an answer for that. The top ones that I want to read by the end of the year, and ironically I'm just realizing that both of my answers for this are unfinished series, so basically it's just obviously finishing whatever is currently out. The most obvious answer is of course Lightlark. Nobody's surprised. I am so eager to get back into this series and into book 2. Why I'm so eager and have yet to pick it up, I'm the only one to blame for that, but this series is definitely a top priority for the year. And then the other series that I want to read is the Timeless series by Gabrielle Meyer. So I actually read this first book over a year ago, and I've been saying that I want to continue the series since then, but currently several of my friends are reading it and loving it and like totally binged through them, so it's given me that motivation to stop putting it off. And just like Lightlark, it's a series that I know I'm going to absolutely love, so like why do I keep putting it off? Part of it's to blame my blind TBRs, but I need to just put it on my TBR myself. And the next question is there any books you want to reread this year? Because of the amount of books that are so high on my TBR and like I'm actually really eager to read, I will not be making a bunch of time for rereads, but there is 2 series that I'd at least like to reread the first book in both of them and get started on rereading them. And one of those is The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'm really hoping to read at least this first book in the remainder of June or going into July, because obviously if I don't read it in the summer, what is the point? I should be able to breeze right through this one, and I read this series in like 2017. It is time for a reread. But then I also have been saying for way too long that I want to reread Magnolia Parks, another series that I read several years ago, and obviously I keep reading whenever a new release comes out, but hands down one of my favorite series of all time. I have tabbed so much in every single book and I just am so drawn to revisit. And so this one, along with like Binding 13, Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, are series that I know in my lifetime I want to reread over and over again, but like at the moment, this is the one that I feel the most eager to reread. And next question, a book that you keep putting off. In all transparency, guys, there's so many. In fact, I looked back at my freakout tag in 2024, and the books that I said I keep putting off in that video are still sitting on my TBR shelf. Actually, the books that I said are highest on my list to read by the end of 2024 are still sitting on my TBR shelf. I'm just so bad about this. But one book of the many that I keep putting off is Redeeming Six. This is the fourth book in the Boys of Tommen series, but the second book that's about the brother Joey. Maybe it's the content. All of these books have some really hard, human, heavy content, but this one in particular has been the most, shall I say, triggering for me because of the addiction issues. Growing up, witnessing some of that, I think that it's just like really hard for me to read, but I want to. But she's also huge. So I think that that's the other part of it, is like diving into massive books is not always easy when the TBR is overflowing, and I feel like I could read 3 books in the amount of time that it takes me to read the one. So I just need like right timing, but I also need to make the timing. Next question is a book that you enjoyed that has mixed reviews. This was also a very, very easy answer for me because 2 of my favorite books so far this year actually have very mixed reviews. One of those is Lightlark. Every time I even like hold this book up, I'm just like giddy. I just liked it that much. But it has very mixed reviews, and I do understand why. It's super unique. I was thinking I wouldn't even read it because when I was online asking for romantasy recommendations, a lot of people said skip Lightlark. I am so glad that I didn't listen. It just proves that read what you feel drawn to and what you think sounds good to you, because I loved it. And then the other book that similarly I was really hesitant going into because of the mixed reviews, but I loved it, is Mile High. In fact, there's people who love the rest of this series that did not like Mile High, or they didn't even read it, they DNF'd it, but then they went on and enjoyed the rest of the series. So I was kind of expecting that I wouldn't like this book either, and as you already know, it's a favorite of the entire year for me. I do not know how this series could possibly get better from here because this was gold. But I do think I was willing to push through the hard times, to push through with Xander when he was so unlikable, and I connected a lot with like the more human side of their story rather than the romance. So I think if people were only interested in the romance, that's why this is so mixed. But if you push through, Xander becomes the most thoughtful human being. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care the amount of hate that it has. Again, I don't recommend it to a lot of people, but she's a keeper for me. And next is a 5-star prediction for the second half of the year. There is not any new releases that I am aware of that I think will be 5 stars. There's some that I'm so excited about, but I'm hesitant to be like, yes, that will be a 5-star read. So this isn't a new book coming out, but it is one that I fully expect to give 5 stars to, and that is The Lady and the Lionheart. If you watched my recent book haul and like the books that I got for my birthday, my husband actually handpicked this one for me. I had never even heard of it, and he knew just based on my favorite book of all time, doing some research and taking the time to look, he found this book. So my expectations for it are super high. I will actually be really disappointed if it's not a 5-star book for me. And the last 2 questions are more like goals and personal type of things. Will you finish your reading goal by the end of the year? Yes, 100% yes. I had decided back in January not to set a specific number for my reading goal. Every year I did that, I just didn't care about whether or not I hit it. I actually always went over anyways, and so I just decided that this year I wasn't going to set a number for myself, so my number was 1. And Fable is already congratulating me that I hit my goal. But my other goal of getting through my physical TBR, that is not going very well. We aren't even going to talk about that. And the last question is, do you have any other reading goals or personal goals by the end of the year? I do feel like most of the books that I have read so far this year have been very mid for me. So I want to be a lot more particular about what book clubs, buddy reads, things like that I commit to, so I'm not forced to read books that I'm not even enjoying. And then handpicking more thoroughly what goes onto my blind TBRs so that no matter matter what gets opened, I feel pretty excited about it, but also allowing a lot of room for mood reading. Mood reading is just my motto for the second half of the year. I'm so tired of having to read books that I feel forced to read. That's not what reading is about, and so I really want to just allow myself to mood read and to read what I want, and the people who like what I'm reading will stick around, and the people who don't will not. I would love to say that I will work harder on my physical TBR. I really am not buying a bunch of books unless they're new releases, so I should be able to put a dent in it by the end of the year, but I'm kind of giving up hope that that's ever going to get smaller. So that is a wrap on my mid-year freakout. Again, if you're a booktuber, let me see yours, and if you're not, I would still really love to hear your answers to these questions. If you liked this video and you have not hit subscribe yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around. I hope that the second half of our year, no more mid books. I ban all of the mid books. I hope that we just read like 4.5 and 5-star books most of the time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go read a book.